Welcome back to the Holler. tnholler.com is where you can find us at the TN Holler. Hollering all across the state thanks to your support. Chip in a few bucks a month and get one of these sweet hats. Special thanks to Elisa Parker. If you're buying or selling a home in Middle Tennessee, do it through her. And if you need a lawyer, Abby Rubenfeld. Today, we're talking to somebody who I am a big fan of. I've Had It podcast is the podcast. Jennifer Welch is her name. Jennifer, how are you today?
Very well. How are you doing?
It's a tough day.
Yeah.
I actually am excited that you're here to process this. A sad day. And let me just start by saying, obviously, I do not agree with Charlie Kirk on basically anything, but political violence is never the answer. We need to condemn political violence no matter which way it goes. How are you feeling today?
I share a lot of what you say. I disagree with so much of what Charlie Kirk says, a lot of his language and how much it hurt gay people when he said that they should be stoned, and when he spoke about not wanting to fly if a Black female were the pilot, how isolating and scared minority groups must have felt, marginalized. And I always want to stand with those people. But my disagreement with him, in my wildest mind, I never go to, I want him murdered. It is a disagreement. And there's been these disagreements in politics in every country around the world since the beginning of time. Charlie Kirk wants a different form of government than I want, but he's a human being doing his job, which is a much larger scale of what you and I do. At the end of the day, I see this as a gun problem, access to guns. You see this in the United States all the time, and we are so primed for this, for shootings, political assassinations. Whenever I see anybody shot, even somebody I disagree with, I hate it. My politics always return to the default setting of empathy. And empathy was something that Charlie Kirk himself said that he thought was a toxic trait.
Yeah, I mean, look, we could sit here and list all of the terrible things this guy has said, and I don't want to downplay that. Racism and a lot of ugliness, but it's a never-ending cycle when you go down this road. I don't know if you know this, my house was shot at. My family still deals with the ramifications of that. Even still, I wouldn't want retaliation. I wouldn't wish that because I know where that goes. Really irresponsible stuff going on. Jesse Waters and Bannon and Alex Jones immediately saying we're now at war. It seems like they were almost waiting for something like this to take us down this road. They seem to want to act like, quote unquote, the left has a monopoly on political violence, which we know is not true.
They want to be able to do and say what they want to with impunity and call us liberal scum, vermin, enemy from within, and
Rats,
all of this
I think
stuff.
Jesse said last night.
Right. But then when we ever call out and say, hey, I think that your government is giving Nazi, then it's like, oh my God, you guys are terrible. You guys are awful. But somebody on the right said that this was the right's Reichsfire, a burning of a federal building in Germany. And Hitler used it to declare an emergency order that suspended civil liberties before we even know who the shooter is and what their motives were. You hear from Fox News, who is somewhat mainstream, total propaganda, don't get me wrong, but millions of people view it, all the way down to the crazies like Alex Jones, and they all have a unified message. This is war. These people are evil. Concerns me about how they are going to use this to continue fascist takeovers. We're past somebody on the right getting shot and coming together and having a conversation about gun safety, or maybe we shouldn't allow guns on universities. Maybe there should be metal detectors. They don't want to have those conversations. MAGA is primed to use this kind of language because a lot of them are evangelical Christians. They're rapture preppers, view the world in a black and white worldview. They are evil. We have to get them. This is the same kind of spiritual warfare language that this part of the MAGA base is primed to jump into.
The word that I keep hearing them use is they this, they that. Whenever it comes in this direction, they act like there was this kind of coordinated plan. I guess what I'm searching for and failing so far to find is like, how do we stop this slide? There is this easily manipulated momentum. There's not a lot of common ground to be found legislatively, but at least emotionally, I do feel like my neighbors don't want the disintegration of society. How do we stop this?
You know, I mean, I wish I knew the answer to that question. There's something that I think Trump broke in people. The first time, okay, we got over it. You know, we elected Biden, and then January 6th happened. And there seemed to be about a 2-week moment of clarity that the nation had, where I had Republican acquaintances that were like, too much, he lost, he needs to own it. When they started whitewashing January 6th, and then when he got elected again, the collective moral collapse of the country, from the people that serve around Trump all the way to our neighbors. Every time they allow something that inside they know is wrong, but they capitulated to it and okayed it, they kept moving the goalposts and moving the goalposts. But here's the difference between us and them. When Nancy Pelosi's husband was beat with a hammer, they celebrated it. Charlie Kirk called for somebody to go bail out the attacker. Like you, I disagree with everything that Charlie Kirk stands for. I don't like gun violence. I don't like racism. I don't like homophobia. I don't like sexism. I stand against all of those things, always have and always will. When I saw him get shot, it broke my heart. I'm not a heartless person. I'm scared for all of us. We've had presidents that have been shot. Guns are easier and more accessible, not less. I wish I knew how to make people care, but they have this massive propaganda machine and they are primed through their mega churches to believe in this very black and white worldview. Trump, and this is fucking crazy to say it, they think is like Jesus and we're demons. They believe that. It's crazy, but that's the kind of magical thinking that we're up against. So it's very difficult to have a logical conversation with people whose default setting is magical thinking.
We often say at the Holler that Tennessee's a theocracy. And if you don't believe us, just ask them. I'm not assailing anybody's faith, but the scary part of that is you can justify a lot if you think you're serving Jesus. That's kind of why I think voices like James Tallarico, even Pete Buttigieg, Justin Jones and Justin Pearson here in Tennessee, people who can speak matters of faith. I am for the separation of church and state, but I think when Democrats don't speak to that, 70% of the country considers themselves Christian. You leave a vacuum where they can say you're anti-God. And so I do think it's very important for Democrats to meet them where they are, have that conversation and remind them what Jesus's message really was. James Tallarico regularly says, if being anti-gay was Jesus's core message, you'd think he would have mentioned it. How do Democrats seize back that message? I find that to be important for them to do.
I think they have to play offense and defense at the same time. Call out the religious hypocrisy and the weaponization of Christianity that has been used by the Republican Party for decades, long before MAGA. Because in rural towns, as you know, you live in a state that has a lot of rural towns, and I do too. Their only culture they have is that church. Republicans Christian signal. They call us virtue signalers. I call them Christian signalers. They weaponize people's faith against them. Caroline Leavitt wears her cross. Trump sends out an email, send me $15. I'm trying to get into heaven. Yes, Hegseth, all of that. So we need to call out the hypocrisy of it, because that's going to make people think for a second, while at the same time putting out credible messengers. I'm an atheist. I wouldn't be one of those messengers.
I'm a Jew. I'm out too.
Andy Brashear, who won in Kentucky, and he never threw marginalized kids under the bus. In fact, he used his faith. My faith instructs me not to bully these kids. My faith instructs me to love and support them. That's what Jesus, my Lord and personal Savior, tells me to do. Tallarico, the same. These people need to be reminded of the message, because at the exact same time, one of the things that Charlie Kirk and other Christian nationalists are doing is they are actually propagandizing that empathy is a toxic trait.
He literally said that.
This is literally starting to become a part of the Christian culture, because they know they have a Jesus problem. They know they have an empathy problem. So having credible messengers, I'll be the attack dog. Y'all never make me want to be a Christian ever. But we need to also put out our choir boys. I hate to say this, but you and I probably understand this more than a lot of people on the coast. Racism is very, very real in the Bible Belt. Default setting for a lot of MAGA Christian voters. And so we need to put out these white choir boy Dems that can speak the gospel, like Tallarico and Andy Brashear. Between you and me, anytime anybody brings up their religion and politics, I'm always like, oh God, here we go. It just wears me out. But I understand, as you said, we are a very religious first world country. And I think it's important we remind these Christians what they're supposed to do, because Jesus didn't say a lot, but he spoke out against the accumulation of wealth. So you have all of these rural working class people that vote for very few people to accumulate wealth.
You mentioned not throwing trans people under the bus. That's another thing. I saw you called out Rahm for that and that interaction that you had with him. It's not Dems that are centering that. It's Republicans that use that issue to drive a wedge. And to me, it's like we have to take care of everybody.
For a political operative like Rahm Emanuel, he's looking at polling and he's looking at the autopsy of the 2024 race and that ad, Kamala's for they, them, Donald Trump is for you. I think we're past that. And I think the Democrats have to say none of us are free until all of us are free. And listen up, rural voters. Here's the deal. At your church, Betty's son down the road, he might be a little light in the loafers, but she loves him. And you've seen those kids bully him. And you don't like that. Jesus wouldn't like that. This is what Andy Brashear did. He used his faith. And we have to remind these people, do you want anybody bullied? You might not understand it. It might sound weird what we've been taught, or there are two genders. years, and this might sound kind of weird and crazy, but there's no political agenda behind this. The Democrats should say, why are Republicans so obsessed with everybody's
Obsessed.
genitals?
Obsessed.
Why did they crash Grindr? Why won't they release the Epstein files? These are very sexually repressed people, and I think we should attack. My only regret about the Rahm thing is I didn't bring up Andy Beshear won in Kentucky, and he didn't sell anybody down the river. And I just don't want to be a part of a political party that marginalizes trans kids, less than 1% of the population. You and I both know, living in these Bible thumper states, nobody would choose in rural America to be gay, to be trans, because these people are judgmental and mean if you don't fit into their box of what they think you should be.
The Epstein thing kind of undercuts that whole idea. Their whole thing about trans people is protect the kids, protect the kids. It shows us how convenient that argument really
They
is. So,
weaponized children
yeah,
the same way that they weaponized faith. They
right.
weaponized, we're pro-kids, pro-life, but once those kids are born, there's no support, infrastructure, social
Right.
structure whatsoever to help them. My belief is that a lot of this is a deeply psychological thing. This whole pro-life thing lives in the Republican Christian space. If you're told as a very young kid, you can't masturbate, you can't think about women, this is a sin, you're evil, you're going to go to hell. My very first boyfriend in high school, his parents were super duper Bible thumpers. His mother caught him masturbating and grounded him for 6 months. A 16-year-old kid, the shame that was put onto him. Then they become men, and then they're attracted to subject women that they were told were lustful, shameful, dirty, all of these things. For me, the whole pro-life thing is such a punitive thing. Let's get her pregnant so that everybody knows that she's a slut. It's like a deeper kind of branding there. They can say they're pro-kids all they want to. They can say they're pro-military. It is rhetoric. Their policies and the way they vote never align with that. It's all a jet stream of bullshit. And when it comes time to put up, they don't support the troops. They don't support women. They don't support children. They don't fund families. They support billionaires and business. And that is it.
How did you get like this?
I was raised by two atheists, born in Dallas, Texas. My parents moved us up here when I was in elementary school. My siblings are older than I. They were in high school. And I lived in suburban Oklahoma City, super white public school, very white suburbs. And all of my peers were like super religious. I mean, constantly trying to save me. Jennifer, have you been saved? And I'm like, from what? Have you accepted Jesus? And I'd go home and tell my mother. She'd be like, oh, that's ridiculous. That's the worst part about living in this part of town. She would always tell me the louder the Christian, the more screwed up they are, darling. You just hide and watch. And it was true. Like my friends who I was on the top of their prayer list, I'd go over to their house to spend the night, and their mom would have a black eye because the dad had roughed her up, or the dad had a couple of girlfriends, or the dad had a secret child. Not all, far beyond just the normal dysfunctional American family that mine was. And we were dysfunctional, as everybody family is, but this was like next level. From what my mother taught me to be objective and open-minded and care about people. My mother and I had a trans hairdresser in the 80s. That's how progressive my mother is, in the 80s. I saw my peers and their parents as cruel. They were really judgmental. They were really mean to me because I didn't go to their church, and they told me that my family and I were going to go to hell. My mother taught me to have an open mind. And then when I saw my peers doing, it all lined up. And I've just always been super open-minded, progressive, not indoctrinated at all.
I'm Jewish, grandparents survived the Holocaust, family in Israel. You have been pretty vocal about the idea that the future of the Democratic Party or Democratic leaders are not going to be able to be on the wrong side of the Gaza issue, which I completely agree on. I think people are coming around on the rank and file side of things. But in terms of Democratic leadership, how far away are we from them getting that message?
You know, I don't know. I'm shocked as shit that they still haven't. I started trying to figure this out, like what's going on. I heard people in the far, far left talking about AIPAC. You live in Oklahoma, you're worried about like national politics.
Most
You
people
don't
had
really,
no idea who they were.
brain doesn't get out. So I started, well, what is AIPAC? I find out that one of the largest lobbies who donated to MAGA, AIPAC, also has our politicians beholden. It's crazy how much power they have. When I find that out, I'm like, are you serious? Like we're beholden to the same people that elected MAGA. And I know from being raised in very white Anglo-Saxon Protestant circles, the biggest anti-Semites I have ever met are right-wingers. They say like, okay, the Jews need to be in Israel. They only think that because they're rapture preppers, i.e. Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley. Then they want Jesus to come and send all the Jews to hell, which is a very horrible apocalyptic freak show thought to even have. They're going to Jew you down. All of the tropes, those are all said by the same people claimed to be pro-Israel, the most anti-Semitic people I've ever met. So it's really interesting to me that the Israel lobby has found this political party that wants to do away with education, do away with critical thinking. They want to whitewash history. That is the perfect incubator for growing Nazis. That is the petri dish of where you grow a hateful, genocidal ideology.
People that are hearing this are probably going to think rapture prepper thing that you're talking about isn't that big a deal. It actually is. And like
It's real.
they had Washington Post study, there's like 50% of evangelicals believe it. A real
It's a
presence.
very real thing
Yeah.
in the Bible Belt. 8th grade, Brink Bobcats. I'm a cheerleader, football game. Everybody at my school, total Bible thumpers. And they tell me, Jennifer, Jesus is coming tonight. Nostradamus predicted it. This is like 1987. And I go home, I tell my mother, the atheist, she's like, oh, that's ridiculous. I said, well, no, Shonda said that she'd be doing a toe touch and then her pom-poms would drop and her outfit would drop and then everybody's just going to go to heaven. And the football players are like, yeah, I'll be running for a touchdown and then my pads just dropped. There was 2,000 people at my school. I graduated with like 600 people. Everybody at the school was talking about this. We go to the football game, Brink Bobcats win. Jesus is a no-show.
Did any part of you think maybe they're right about this?
No. There's a window of indoctrination, and I was never indoctrinated in it. So when you hear about it, even if you're 13, it sounds like somebody describing Greek mythology to you, virgin births. And I know that there are Christian listeners of yours. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about these white Christian nationalists. And the rapture preppers in these mega churches are bigger now than they were in 1987. This is something the people on the coast that flirt with MAGA, that want their tax break, they think, oh, he's from New York. He's not a crazy right winger. The people and the organisms and the money behind him, they want this, and it is a very real thing. And what's so terrifying for me is seeing what I thought was fringe red state behavior. They're tongue talking in the parking lot of the White House now before they go in.
No, they
They're
absolutely
doing tongue talking. These are rapture preppers, and they are very anti-Semitic.
I interviewed Gavin Newsom not too long ago, and what I said to him then is, to me, the alarmists have yet to be wrong. How alarmed are you about where we are as a country, and are you hopeful about where things are headed? You don't have to say yes.
No, I'm not. People that study authoritarianism, when they get power, they do everything they can do to not give it up. And Donald Trump was forced to give it up before because he wasn't surrounded by sycophants. And now he is. And everything that they are doing is so that they can keep power. If a year from now we're still able to do this and talk, I will be pleasantly surprised. I think that they are going to use this murder of Charlie Kirk to erode our civil rights. The language coming from the White House, the language coming from the president, the language coming from Fox News, they're increasing the temperature. I am not hopeful, and I hate that when Biden didn't incarcerate Trump after that, when they didn't try him, when Merrick Garland dropped the ball. That was it. And now he's been reelected, and I just don't think he's going to give up power. I just don't.
Be careful out there for sure. I appreciate your voice, not just to hold people accountable, but also show the way forward among progressives and Democrats to be unflinching in your values. That's not a small thing. Can I ask you to say, I'm Jennifer Welch and follow the Holler?
Yes, I'm Jennifer Welch and follow the Holler.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I always say blue dots and red states are built different, and I can just feel that in you. Let's try to get some hope in there.
Thanks, Jennifer. Say hi to Pumps.
Oh, I will.